Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week we are not doing an interview, and this week we're going to be talking live with everybody about some of the new things that's been going on in the world of Marvel and DC. First off, we had the Super Bowl, we had a bunch of casting, we got some new trailers, we got a fun bunch of stuff. A big one that's been rocking the nerd world is X-Men 97. And after the initial honeymoon phase of that trailer hit, controversy after controversy has come out of the woodwork. Some of them are superficial and ridiculous. Some of them are actually valid. So we're going to talk about that, as well as all the new updates to the DCU, because there's been lots of cool stuff that's been happening, and some very cool news today about a certain animated project that was told was never going to happen, and now it's went from a it's not happening to it might happen. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, because I, for one, have already made that image my background for my computer because it's just so damn good. But I'm going to talk in detail about this project. So let's sit down and let's talk about some nerd stuff. How you doing, buddy?
The strike is over. Football is happening. I feel like it's all coming out now. I feel like we've been under a tsunami. Not only is there new information every day, but can't we have any nice things? How is there already a controversy about X-Men? Can't it just come back?
No, you want to know why there's a controversy? It's because Disney. That's why there's a controversy. So we're just going to get right into this one, because why not? Let's just talk about it. So the other day, the first trailer for X-Men 97 came out. It showed off a very unique look at the project, kind of giving you some major vibes of the original show. The cast is there, some slight alterations to some of the looks, mainly the Mohawk for Storm. And there was a bunch of online people saying, how dare they give Storm a Mohawk? But then people quickly screen capped and said, she had a Mohawk in the show, stupid. So there was a lot of that stuff going on, which was really funny. They showed everyone in their 90s workout beach attire, which was entertaining. And then this shot seemed to steal the internet for a lot of people, which was just way fun. But not everything exists without some form of controversy. So, what did I do? I dropped my screen, my bad. One thing that really caught people off guard was the animation. Right. So, I mean, originally X-Men 97 was hand-drawn. It was just 90s wonderful. They took Jim Lee's original X-Men designs and animated that for however many years that show went on. It was like 92 to 97. And they did a fantastic job bringing that world to life. But Jim Lee's drawings have always been known for muscles on top of muscles, and that's the look. But what people quickly noticed was that with these new designs, everything was slightly more uniform. It had this kind of a cel-shaded look to it all. But one of the bigger controversies that have existed was, you could argue, the desexualization of certain characters, mainly all of the women in the show. In the original 90s show, it was like everyone was wearing body paint, and that was just part of the fun of the show. Like, it's Jim Lee's drawings brought to life, but people started yelling at Disney right off the bat, saying you were taking away from the artistic integrity of the original project and desexualizing characters that have already been sexualized for decades. And with that, I might know it's a funny controversy, but it's also kind of valid, because they left all of the men in their skin-tight outfits, but all of the women, all the creases are gone. It's like they're all wearing really thick bodies, like wetsuits from like surfing. So there's no more curves. It's all just very flat. But the men have all the muscles on top of muscles. It's very one-sided. It's clearly that they're changing the designs of the women to not offend people, right? And that was one of the big, right off the bat, people were like, what the hell? Why is this happening? Right? So it was a little funny. It turned off into a joke, but then people started getting a little serious with it. Another big controversy, which is, you could argue that's a stupid controversy, but it still is one. The introduction of the X-Men show in the original 90s, there was a character that was added by the name of Morph. He was a straightforward character. He died the first episode, and then after he quickly died, they brought him back as a villain later in the show because Mr. Sinister was like, he's a bad guy now, right? One thing that they did that kind of caught people off guard was that they made this announcement that Morph is now looking kind of more like his changeling comic book counterpart, but he is going to be non-binary now. So something that had never existed with the character in any incarnation of the show, even with Mystique. Mystique is not non-binary. She's just bisexual. That's how they defined Mystique. But Morph is now non-binary. And a lot of people quickly flocked at controversy because they were like, not because they were like anti-non-binary, anti-that, is that they're now injecting a new type of politics into this project. And funny enough, the controversy behind that sole decision has also had some other repercussions, because not only did they say that the character is outspokenly non-binary, but they also indicated that he has a past history with Wolverine, which then people said, so now Wolverine's gay? What's going on? So people started getting upset about some of the things that they were phrasing, as well as how they started releasing this information, right? Which a lot of people just assumed Morph was catfishing Wolverine at some point, and it turned into a thing, right? But
Wolverine is an alpha predator. He fucks you. Okay, so I don't think it matters.
Right. But the other thing was that a lot of people said in the promotion material, in the standard way of doing artistic promotion material, they put the most important characters front and center, and then they build off the tertiary and secondary characters behind them. And they had noticed Morph is now front and center to a lot of this promotional material. Not even a C-list character, like a D-list character in the original comics that was made up for the show and killed on the first outing is now front and center because he is now a political message of diversity. So,
but wouldn't you want to write for this character because they don't have to? Everyone's mad that they don't go to the comics. None of these people are told to read the comics. Why, if they're trying to build from the show itself, why wouldn't you write about Morph?
But that's the thing. Morph in the show was a no-name character and killed off. Now they're bringing him back and reinventing him for modern politics that didn't exist in the 90s. So that's another thing that people are upset about. But the other thing is that when people are saying, if you're adding him for diversity's sake, why not use any one of the other gay characters that exist in the X-Men comics? Perfect example is like Northstar. He is a fantastic character, part of Alpha Flight and then eventually the X-Men. Rich history. The first time the X-Men had ever been on the front page of a comic of a gay wedding, it was Northstar and his husband. So why not use that character who's already been front and center in any sort of allied movement instead of essentially retro changing a character that no one cared about for an audience that doesn't care about that?
I totally hear you. I don't know. And because like on these points, like Zachary, I agree with you. Having a non-binary character, first off, X-Men has always been about politics. So I don't know if people forgot about that or like
ironically. So there was speaking of that, because everyone says, oh, the X-Men was based on the civil rights movement, right? That was the long-standing rumor. Stan Lee actually broke it down that the X-Men was really just about he didn't want to invent backstories to how these characters got their powers. And sure enough, he found some aspects of the civil rights movement that would make compelling storyline, but he did not base the X-Men and their movement off of anything. It was literally just, this is a team of outsiders, and I'm going to do this. So politics became part of X-Men because of the readers from the 60s onward, but it was never the intention by Stan Lee.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? The intention of the art, like the guy who drives Calvin and Hobbes, he didn't want his main character be known for pissing on a Ford sticker, but like
that's what he got.
That's what he got. So like, right. I mean, I feel like this thing, whatever this X-Men thing was supposed to be, is now dead on arrival. I don't think there's any storyline. I think it's just going to be, people are going to be mad at it no matter what it is.
Yes, I agree.
Also, Taylor, who is the audience for? Because everything you're telling me is like, okay, this is a show for 10-year-olds. But then there's all these other choices that are like, well, why would that matter to a kid?
Another thing that was controversial is that the show is now, instead of it being TVY7 like the original show, they've made the show TV14, which is essentially Disney Plus equivalent of PG-13.
That's a different show. And if it's going to be TV14, everyone's got a butt, like regardless of who you are. So all human beings have butts.
You make the show for a different audience, that mainly the audience that watched it originally, but then you neuter it so it can be for kids, but then inject politics that aren't for kids. So there's a lot of people saying, who is this show for? Because you're cutting out things that the original audience remembers, adding things that the original audience doesn't care about, but then saying that you're doing changes for kids, but you're not letting kids watch it. So who is this show for?
Well, is this them getting away from like ladies in general? Is this like them slowly just being like, it's just going to be, let's go back to what works. Buff dudes fighting buff dudes. Dragon Ball Z is buff dudes fighting buff dudes.
But that's the funny thing, is that you have storylines for the show that's reportedly the main villain of the show is a woman. So that's one thing. And you have entire storylines from the writer's room that kind of leaked out that are mainly about the women in the show. So they're the ones taking front and center in a lot of the plot points. But you're doing this stuff that, like you said, it makes this weird, why are they doing this?
X-Men has fantastic female characters.
Always has.
And if they want to explore those stories, I'm totally up for it.
Yeah.
I hope that they don't lose the plot, though, about the X-Men doing team stuff.
So some of the interesting stuff that I came up through, I was actually seeing some of the controversial stuff, was there has been some changes to the casting. And that's been something that's been also controversial to the fans. You had one actor who passed away, multiple actors who passed away, because it's been like, 30-something years. So you have other actors now playing these roles, but there are certain characters that are now being voiced by new actors, and their voice actor is still alive. They've just been replaced because of diversity's sake, is what a lot of people are accusing. With Jubilee, they recast Jubilee. They put an Asian actress in the voice of Jubilee instead of having Allison Court return, which she still could have and probably should have. It says desexualizing women, adding non-binary characters. And the biggest middle finger that a lot of people are finding to the fan bases was the showrunner. So the showrunner of the new show is known for political what is the phrasing I want to use? Is known for political activism and feminism, which is fine. But the guy that she replaced was Larry Houston, and he was a black man and one of the first black men in comic books to pioneer such a successful project. So they replaced him with a white woman and then changed all this other diversity stuff. It's like, a lot of people are like, so we're fine with diversity, but why are you taking out some diversity to replace it with other diversity, which makes no sense? There's no, like, a lot of people are just complaining about the fact that who knows what Disney is doing, but people are already getting annoyed with it because it doesn't feel like it's the same show.
Well, I mean, great. You just nailed it on the head. We're not getting a remake or a redo of the original X-Men cartoon. That's what was promised to us, but that's not what we're getting.
Yeah.
What we're going to get is going to be X-Men 2024 from the MCU writing rooms, from woke Disney. And unfortunately, this is not going to appease what seems to be going around. And the flavor of the water cooler is not good. So does this ruin the Deadpool movie? Like, does this spill over to other things?
So what a lot of people have found is that when Disney is fully in control over their animated projects, you get this kind of stuff. Because Disney has had a history of animated projects the last few years that have been filled with woke propaganda, whatever you want to call it. It's the stupidest term, but it's what everyone labels it. They fill their movies with these notions, these political messages, these political undertones, all of the stuff that's not necessarily for kids. They fill it, and then the movie fails, and then they blame bigotry, they blame whatever they want to blame. But in the end, you had movies literally like the Buzz Lightyear movie. The movie was okay, it was gorgeous, storyline was meh, but people boycotted the movie because of a single gay kiss at the end of the movie. That didn't serve the plot, but it was really and quite literally added to the movie to say fuck you to Florida. That's the only reason they put that scene in there. And they've talked about that at length, that they added that political message to a kid's movie because they pissed off at Florida, right? Which caused the movie to bomb. And then you have, was it Strange Adventures or Strange New World or whatever that other Disney one was?
Did terrible.
It bombed. It cost them money to even put it out. And people boycotted it because there was a gay couple in there, right? So you have all of these things where you just keep injecting modern politics into kids' movies. People don't care anymore. They stop watching it. And now X-Men 97, which has been in production for the better part of the last 5 years, is doing that same thing. So obviously parents aren't going to let their kids watch it, but the people who were there for the original show will probably get turned off by it very quickly because that has nothing to do with the original show.
I mean, it makes me sad because this is going to be a sparse year for content, and to hear that this is already not up to snuff makes me really sad. I'm
going to watch the crap out of the show like I do with all the other things that I watch. I'm probably going to say, that was pointless.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it. I mean, what if the action's really good? What if they're juicing up Wolverine every episode, and then one episode they're like, we can't, only a tiny skinny person, so Cyclops is going to burn all your skin off, and we're going to drop your metal bones down there, and then you'll regenerate and become alive again. Will they do that kind of stuff?
I don't know. That would be kind of funny if they did that. They're like, let's get weird with this show. But what it is that the original guy who ran the show, Larry Houston, like I said, the black guy who ran the show and did an amazing job, he's not really involved in the show. So how are you going to essentially take the soul out of the show and expect people to respond the same way they did the original show? Because not only was he like the main guy behind the show, he directed like 80% of those episodes.
Who was behind X-Men Evolution?
Fox Kids? I don't know. It was a whole different team, and they loved what the original did.
And they did, yeah. And I feel like they did a great job of taking the X-Men and writing them up and presenting them in a different way
and
showing their strength.
That time.
Yeah. And it makes me sad that the best part about X-Men is you have such a variety of characters. Morph being non-binary just makes sense to me from a character standpoint.
100%.
But it's frustrating 100%. That we're not allowing these characters to explain themselves. We're putting them in a situation where it is a spotlight on it instead of seeing how these characters would react in these different situations. I also understand the frustration that we already have established characters that would be a great ambassador for these viewpoints because we've touched on them before. They're obviously doing something new, and this is not our X-Men 97. This is some Hollywood writers' room, and now we're gonna, it's crazy how quickly this got called out, though. We're not talking about this on day one.
Yeah. What's interesting about this is what it brings up the same argument that literally everyone has when these things happen. Like when they announced Jonathan Kent, Superboy, as bisexual, not as many people cared about that as much as when they made Tim Drake bisexual, because Tim Drake had existed for almost 40 years, had ongoing relationships with women, and then all of a sudden, by the way, now he's got a gay relationship. So when people get upset, it's not because they're being a bigot toward any aspect of this community. So I was trying to think of the word. If they're getting mad at when these characters who have a long-standing history are changed for political reasons instead of just using other characters, right? So Morph, based on the character Changeling, yes, 100% makes total sense that the character could be non-binary. But the character has never been non-binary, so changing him for this new show is also somewhat of a disservice to the character.
Great. So then doesn't this just make the show another time branch? And hopefully next season they'll just redo this the way that we want to and bring back the original creator?
But Disney never does that, right? Disney has the history of, like with Willow. right? They put Willow out, and
Willow was so bad, everyone. You can't watch it if you didn't see it, but it was disappointing week to week. It was disappointing.
It turns out that show did so poorly that instead of going back and fixing it, they did what everyone hates Warner Brothers for doing and killed the show, pulled it from the platform, and wrote it off as a tax reason. So Disney doesn't do this, okay, my bad, we'll do it right the next time. They did the same thing to the Mighty Duck show. They fired Emilio Estevez, did another season, people didn't show up, and instead of bringing him back for the next season, they canceled the show.
I watched that show when Emilio Estevez was on the show. It's got Laura.
I loved it.
It was pretty fun. They were doing some fun stuff with the kids.
I loved it, but then they messed it up by firing him because he didn't want to get a vaccine, which was pointless because by the time they started filming again, the vaccine wasn't mandatory. So it was like, guys, come on. Like, stop.
I mean, we have to listen. Nothing is immune from all of this.
Yeah.
And nor are these shows. It makes me sad. I will tell you this, though. Every day that I'm drinking the water, the Marvel juice and going, it's tasting bad, that Warner Brothers lot is looking more and more appealing. And do you think, I've seen some rumblings, do you think that Fantastic Four is going to be the movie to go up against Superman Legacy? Do you think that
Not at all?
You don't think so? Okay.
At all.
You don't think anything goes up against Superman?
Which is funny because you have, what is the movie that comes out just a few days before Superman? And it's like, people are like, okay, cool. Right? Well, so I'm reading this comment here, and this is what they're talking about. Like, would have made more sense to make Damian bisexual or pansexual instead of Tim Drake because he's a younger character who they started from the ground up. So by the time he's old enough to explore his sexuality, do whatever you want with it. But Tim Drake, who's had an ongoing relationship with Stephanie Brown, completely intertwined with his origin.
I also agree that Damian, he could have, like, listen, you guys just don't understand the way that the League of Shadow works, and this is all a construct, and the way that we express ourselves is completely different. I also think it's
in a Himalayan mountain with a bunch of dudes.
You are cuddling for warmth, okay?
You need to get warm. You need to get warm, and that would make sense character-wise for Damian because he grew up seeing that.
If we're gonna hide in the rafters, the closer I can get to your body, the better ninjas we're gonna be.
Right. So, like, it makes sense. I mean, table reads for Legacy this week. I think yes, there actually is. So we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so we have the new Jurassic World movie. Superman.
Taylor?
And no. Before you say it sounds terrible, they just announced the director about a half an hour ago.
Listen, I like that Jurassic Park is back into the world. I don't think people understand how the last two, that middle of the new trilogy where they go to that Illuminati house and the dinosaurs running around the little girl's bedroom, that was batshit bonkers, okay? And now the third one felt like half of Bonkers Town plus like we'll bring back the old regime. Is there a different book story I don't understand? Because I don't know what else they're going to do. I think what they're going to do is start making people dinosaurs. I think that's where the last trajectory was going.
So that was actually something they initially planned to do in The Lost World. That was actually something that they wanted to do from the beginning because that was something that Michael Crichton had hinted on in his books. But what we know about this new franchise is that it's not going to have any characters from the other two. There's 6 movies to reappear, so none of that. It's set maybe later, maybe further into the timeline where dinosaurs are just part of the world, so fucking deal with it. But they've got the writer of the first Jurassic Park movie on board and writing this film. So the guy who actually adapted Michael Crichton's work is now making this new film, which is a cool moment right there. Like, that's a good sign because they didn't get him back for any other 5 movies that they made, but they got him for this one.
You're basically selling me on Jurassic Park more than the X-Men cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's coming back.
And Gareth Edwards is directing this bitch.
Who's Gareth Edwards?
Star Wars Rogue One and the creator. And I watched the creator the other day.
What'd you think about creator?
Oh my God, that movie emotionally wrecked me.
Okay.
I was not expecting to be like, oh wow, it was so damn good. But at the same time, I'm like, I need a cigarette. I don't even smoke. That was so hard to watch. Like it was
the ability to take Star Wars, the fact that Rogue One is the most watchable of the modern Star Wars, and it's so dark and so different, that gives me some hope. I don't need a dark dinosaur world, but I need some base reality. I need the dinosaurs to feel a little bit more, they feel almost magically in some of those movies.
Yeah, and you don't need to go like the route they did with like the second Jurassic World movie and the third one, where it's like the dinosaurs are being tortured and now we're basically dinosaur PETA coming in and trying to stop it. Like, you don't need to go that route, but you also just need to acknowledge that this world now has these creatures in it, and there is actually some stuff that could and should be addressed that hasn't been done yet. But you also have InGen, the mysterious weaponizing company that keeps getting talked about, but have never done anything with it. Because in the first Jurassic World, you had this hint, oh, InGen's going to be a bad guy the next one. Nope, it was the dude who worked for the dude who worked with John Hammond, who's cloning his kids, and they're selling dinosaurs for very cheap on the black market. I was watching that movie. I'm like, there's no fucking way. I would buy a Raptor for $4 million. Why is
buy stuff
40, 50 million? Like,
that's, you buy stuff, so that's a thing.
Like, I was just like, they're selling these dinosaurs for so cheap. I thought the numbers would be like another zero at the end.
It's so funny that movie sounds like the first Resident Evil movie. They're breeding dinosaurs in an InGen corporate, like it's like Dino Crisis, right? You got to get out of there with just a pistol.
Yeah, but it's like I was like, all right, this is weird, and then they kind of went away from that in the third one, but then also had like the dinosaur black market.
The third one's garbage.
So I will always say that the third one, the biggest issue that I had with that movie was that it was filmed during COVID, and you could see it.
Feels like a COVID movie. They're all so distant. They're all on sound stages.
Everyone had 6 feet apart from each other. No more than 3 or 4 people in a scene at the same time. I was like, this is a weird movie.
It's a weird movie. It doesn't.
It's like everyone's going off in their own halls and doing things, but nobody's doing anything together except for the awkward group shots that that they did on the last day.
Yeah, it was. It doesn't. It just. It makes me sad that that was the big payoff. That was the big Universal ride. That was what they had. Okay, Superman, Jurassic Park, and then what was the third tentpole that we were going to have?
Fantastic Four. And already there's not so much the controversy, but it's like the constant outcry. The internet is basically almost in unison. I love Pedro Pascal, but I don't love him as Reed Richards. And that's what literally everyone is saying right now. Like, we all love him. I mean, he's fantastic in The Last of Us. He's fantastic in The Mandalorian. He's fantastic in Game of Thrones. Does he fit Reed Richards?
There's no way they change this.
They won't. Because they already did behind the scenes. They changed the cast. They got rid of the guy that was almost Johnny Storm to be a new guy that's now Johnny Storm. But even then, people are like, that guy doesn't scream Johnny Storm.
Johnny Storm is all going to be CG.
100%.
I also wonder, I'm looking at the time frame. This thing's supposed to be done in a year?
And it's and the setting of the movie is in the early 60s. Galactus is the villain, and the movie is going to end with them being brought into the future. Why waste Galactus that early? Galactus is a Thanos level villain, and they're going to do what they did with the last Fantastic Four.
Also, why not? It's so funny. Why not do that movie with Doctor Doom? And then
they've already announced that Doctor Doom is going to be introduced in the film, but as a small cameo at the end, setting up his greater MCU.
Fuck that!
Yeah,
you should have him in the movie. Just a fight on the top of a building. He's like, I want Sue Richards. She gets me. Because then you have some dude who has a fucked up past from the 40s or the 50s, and then his motivation is like, he's not a man from our time. He doesn't make sense. He like grew up in some weird Nazi country, right?
He's like old-timey racist. And
real racism.
And he uses magic to keep himself alive, waiting for the Fantastic Four to return, and that's what brings him into the present.
Colonial racism.
for Sue to come back. She's back, and I'm ready to kill everyone.
I think
that sounds fantastic.
I think they did. I think Galactus is the piece that I think you have the Galactus punch the Avengers. You know what I mean? Like Thanos snapped, we see Galactus just like punch half of them away, and then we get a big fight movie.
Yeah. I just have so many questions of why they're doing it this way. Like, I love the idea of the 60s aesthetic. Having the Fantastic Four being kind of involved in the space race kind of thing. That sounds fun.
They're X-Men first classing this movie.
They are 100% X-Men first classing it. And they're adding a little bit of Ant-Man to quantum themselves into the future, which is fine.
Oh, does that mean Tony Stark's dad's going to be in this movie? For sure.
Fully possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Fully possible. And I hope this is the one thing that I've always wanted them to do. And I hope they do it, because in the last Fantastic Four movies, both of them, all three of them, the Human Torch just made up his name as the Human Torch. But in the comics, the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, named himself after the humanoid android called the Human Torch, who was a member of Captain America's Howling Commandos. The character was not allowed to be used in the movies, but he was cameoed in that first movie. And when they went to the World's Fair, and you see the dude in the red suit in the jar. If they do that, if they say Johnny's like, I'm basing myself after that robot that fought in World War II, I'll forgive the casting of him. But they're not going to do it because Marvel doesn't do the right thing.
Okay. So the Fantastic Four are going to work for the Nazis that we brought over after World War II to build rockets.
Are you saying that Reed Richards is going to have ties to Project Paperclip? And
Listen, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, let's call a spade. All right. So then they're going to have an accident.
Yeah.
Do you think the accident puts them into the future with their powers?
I think their accident is going to be part of the space race sequence. Like, they're going up to space to go monitor Galactus, and they get their powers. But in their attempt to fight Galactus, they suck themselves and Galactus into the quantum world.
So they fight him in the 60s.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I could see Marvel saying the space race wasn't about us being Russia. It was about us stopping Galactus from slapping the Earth. I could see them do that.
Who does the Thing clobbering time to then? Galactus is he's one of the classic Fantastic Four villains, but he's not one that like shows their prowess as a fighting team. It's kind of more of a
intellectual villain.
Yeah.
And the Thing is always, every time Galactus shows up, the Thing is always like in the back seat of the Fantastic Four.
I'll drive the car, fellas.
I'm the pilot because I can't punch this guy. Like,
that's all parking time.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I have so many questions about how they're going to make the Thing relevant in this movie if they're fighting essentially a Celestial, because Galactus isn't a Celestial, but we've seen them, so people are going to assume he is.
Does he fight? Does that mean Silver's? I can't believe we're jumping to Fantastic Four 2 already. Like, we had another movie in the 2000s. We're already to Silver Surfer?
Apparently, the fan outcry of the female Silver Surfer leak caused them to basically say, no, we're going to use the normal Silver Surfer. So they're trying to cast the normal Silver Surfer right now. So I think the Thing is going to sock that silver dude in the face. And that's the only thing he's going to fight in the whole movie.
Okay. And Invisible Woman just like steals documents?
Sure. She's an espionage expert. She does it. But the whole thing, which is going to be very interesting, and a lot of people, the big controversy about the casting is that there's a 13-year age gap between Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman.
Listen, so women love older men. What do you mean?
Immediately, when I posted the picture of the cast announcement that they did on Valentine's Day, which was very classy of them.
Yeah, you put their ages on there?
No. The first comment that came out was, holy shit, Reed Richards is a groomer. Look, Mr. Fantastic is a groomer. And that was the first comment. And so many comments are about that, because no matter how you look at it, a 13-year age gap means that he was not only an adult when she was in kindergarten, but he was an adult for every aspect of her formative life, which is a little weird.
Why can't they just fight the Mole King in the middle of New York City? Like, if you're going to do the 60s, just do the original story.
Oh, man, get up in the weird green jumpsuit with the cape and the goggles. Like, be weird with it.
because we need to spend time with the family. And I feel like I don't know, maybe this feels rushed. I don't know. Is this going to be a 3-hour movie? It's not going to be a 3-hour movie.
Marvel doesn't like 3-hour movies because everything has to be 2 hours or 2.5 hours if they're really getting.
Yeah, so it's going to be 2.5 hours. We're going to spend 90. We're going to spend half a movie with them getting their shit and then like playing with their shit. See, I think people forget about the first Iron Man movie. There's a bunch of that movie of just him playing with his toys, and we're like, this is really fun. I want to hang out with this guy. I hope we get that with this movie.
Yes and no. I mean, I always said it. One of the things that I always appreciated most about the way Zack Snyder did his movies was that with all of the DC movies that Zack Snyder did, with the sole exception of Man of Steel, every one of them skipped the origin and then just went straight into these are the heroes. And then they later explained the origin in like other ways, but it was always meant to be like they're established, go. And Marvel still does here's the 2-hour movie with the first hour being the origin.
It's so funny because I'll transition like this. We've talked about those studios. We haven't even touched on the debacle that is the failed Madam Web Sony movie, where the actresses think they're in the MCU, but Sony's saying you're not in the MCU.
Well, technically they are, but technically they're not, because the plan was always to include the Sonyverse into the Secret Wars. That was always the plan.
I feel like they were promised that they were going to meet and work with Tom Holland. I feel like that's what I think that's, yeah. Why didn't that happen?
So that is the biggest mystery that's happening right now behind the scenes, because a lot of people have seen that Dakota Johnson's kind of like, basically is like, I signed on for a good movie, and then they rewrote it. And that's how she's been talking about a lot of her interviews. But
which means she read a script at one point and thought, this is a good movie. I want to be a part of it. Then when was it changed?
So shortly into the filming process, they changed some things, which then led people to not be as happy with it. Initially, and this is something that is all kind of behind the scenes info, about 1.5 years ago, a buddy of mine posted something. I echoed it. A lot of other scoopers talked about it. Andrew Garfield was offered the moon to come back as Spider-Man. So a lot of people were like, oh, it's happening. Sony was so confident that it was going to happen that they had made Madam Web a prequel to The Amazing Spider-Man. And the idea was that Uncle Ben's character in this movie was just young Uncle Ben from those movies. And they were going to lead into the present day of Andrew Garfield.
But Garfield turned it down.
Garfield turned it down, said he wanted to take a break from acting, and we don't know if he's ever going to come back or not. But he's just kind of done. I mean, he's 40, and they want him to be Spider-Man again, which is...
He's 40?
Michael, you're almost 40.
I know I'm almost 40, but he looks like a sweet baby boy.
He's older than us, and I've told you that before, that he's got them genes that we want, but he's our age.
Jeans are so tight, like his butt.
Exactly. You make it weird every time.
Well, it's butt. You told me all about butt game. I got butts on my mind.
About butts. I mean, we talked about butts and how Disney doesn't like butts, and Disney did this to that butt, but Andrew Garfield's butt.
Bob's Burgers loves butts. I feel like butts are a positive thing.
Yeah, but you got it. I have to say it now. But he said no. They retconned it to be then said to be a prequel to Tom Holland's movies.
They did a terrible job.
But then they realized that all of the sets don't match the era for that. Yeah. So then they took out the Tom Holland stuff and just made it its own universe. And now Madam Web somehow is part of the Spider-Verse that's disconnected from its own Spider-Verse. So among all of the changes and all of the retcons and the reshoots and the changing and the this and the that, the movie became a dumpster fire. The cast kind of abandoned it as they had it. And the thing that got people really excited about this movie was the Spider-Women were limited to a flash forward sequence where you see for 5 minutes what these characters will be eventually.
All you needed to do was have them have a fight on top of the Empire State Building. Like literally, the end of the
literally the fight that you showed us in the previews, make that part of the movie.
Just do that. Like, I'm thinking about the last Spider-Man movie. They just took 3 Spider-Mans and they had a fight next to the Statue of Liberty. Like, almost like Ghostbusters 2. Just put the ladies and make them do cool stuff.
The reason I got so bummed out was Madam Web is a meh character, right? It's whatever.
Mid.
Yeah, but all three of those Spider Women, the characters are actually amazing to read. I love reading all three of them, and I was really excited about the casting. But then when I heard that their Spider Women sequences are limited to a vision of the future, what the fuck, Sony?
Yeah, Sony, you messed up, and I don't think we're gonna give you. I mean, that's too failed. That's too failed of this Spider-Verse, right? Morbin Time didn't do well. This didn't do well.
Right, Morbin Time technically made its money back.
Did it?
It broke even.
Okay.
But this one will not, because it made 20-something million on its opening weekend, and it still has to make another 80 million to break even.
When's Kraven the Hunter coming? Is it coming?
It's supposed to come out like August, I think, later this year.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Marvel, what Sony needs to do really is look at that movie and say, have we fucked it up yet? And if we have, how do we fix our fuck ups? Because whatever is happening, Amy Pascal maybe spreading herself too thin, or maybe she was expecting more creative people to not do what they're doing, or I don't know what she was thinking, but she doesn't have the vision that she thinks she does. And that's the problem, is that you need someone, and we always say this, you need someone like Kevin Feige at each of these studios controlling these universes. DC is blessed to have the biggest nerd that left Marvel to now run their DC universe, but Sony doesn't have that.
It's crazy that at the end of these movies, Spider-Man doesn't show up. Like, it blows my mind that you don't do why not do a Morbius movie, and then the third act is Spider-Man has to take him down.
But that's the thing that makes no sense, is that they've already set up that the Morbius is joining the Sinister Six somehow, and it's a multiversal Sinister Six. And that weirdness that everyone was like, I don't understand that ending, it made sense the moment you watched Across the Spider-Verse, and you're like, I get it now.
Sure.
But this movie does not fit any of that narrative. And people are now wondering, did they forget what they were planning?
Does that mean we get Paul Giamatti back in a Rhino suit? If it's multi-universal, does that mean we get him back? Listen, they like the multi-universe because Spider-Man made Jamie Foxx relevant in the Spider-Man movies again, right? Like,
what the biggest ironic part is that a lot of people will say, like, oh, they're just copying DC, but the Spider-Verse has always been one of the only multiversal stories in Marvel that actually worked. The Secret Wars stuff has been okay, but it's been nothing compared to the Spider-Verse stuff in the comics. And I love this comment here. Why don't they just let the game makers control the movies? They should, because the people over at Sony Game Studio, Insomniac Games, who've been making those two amazing Spider-Man games, they clearly know Spider-Man better than the people at Sony Pictures. So I wholeheartedly agree.
It's crazy to think that this Fantastic Four is going to go from 0 to 100. Where are we with Superman? And also, are you sad about the Superman show that got canceled?
No.
Okay.
So all right. So there has been a new controversy about that show being canceled because a scooper or a reporter basically said that the reason the show died was because Warner Brothers killed it, which is a half truth.
Which half of it's true?
Warner Brothers did make the deciding vote.
Okay.
But the reason why they canceled it was not the same reason why everyone is saying. Oh, they're like, oh, James Gunn didn't want a competing Superman, so they killed it because of that. Not at all. What happened was when CW came in and got bought by Nexstar, they started cutting budgets across the board. They started cutting budgets so small that they basically told Warner Brothers, if you want your DC shows on our channel, you have to pay more to make them. We're not splitting the bill anymore.
Yeah.
And they were like, why are we doing this in the first place? Because they weren't getting any profits. The CW verse was not profitable for Warner Brothers at all because it's on basic cable. You got nothing from the ad revenue. They were getting character exposure. That was about it.
Taylor, not even basic cable, like antennas.
Yeah, like antennas. Like it's like that is one of the free shows. Like if you have an antenna and you get 5 channels, the CW is one of those 5 channels.
We live in LA. You watch baseball games. We have an antenna, and it's one of the channels. I've never watched it, but it's on there.
So when Nexstar told them that, hey, if you want to make Superman, which has already been a notoriously expensive show for them to make, mind you, they spent, I think, $2 million, maybe $2 or $4 million a season just for the licensing for Superman. And that's before they do any of the camera work or the on-set stuff or the CGI or anything. Right. They were spending millions just to get permission to use the characters. So it was going to be a more expensive show for WB to allow to continue because they were basically being told it used to be 50-50, but can it be more like 80-20? And then can we just reap the benefits? So of course Warner Brothers says, we're already going to do more with other stuff. We can't afford this. So no, they didn't kill the show because they didn't want a competing Superman. They didn't want to be paying for another Superman while they're working on another Superman.
Yeah, James Gunn doesn't. His Superman's going to blow this others. It would blow. There would be no comparison. Okay, that's why it's not competition. But the money aspect of it makes a lot of sense. So does that mean? Superhero shows are just off basic cable? Then there's not any of them anymore.
Superman and Lois is the last of the CW DC properties, and now that it's done, it's done.
Yeah, there's no more like Plastic Boy. We're not going to get anything over there. It's just not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone.
You can't, and it's funny is they will not compare in budgets to like whatever this Game of Thrones Wonder Woman show. I'm so jonesing for it. I'm so excited for House of Dragon to come back. Like the fact that we're going to get something in that tone, but like that's not $2 million to the licensing. That's going to be like $2 million an episode. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be a very expensive show.
It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with it. And I love the idea of a medieval set Wonder Woman. Like, that sounds fun. Like, don't even have Wonder Woman. At the end of the show, have Hippolyta make her out of clay. That's how you do the show. But the entire show up to that point, let's have it be the tribal warfare between the Amazons in a mythological medieval type of setting. I want that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, or like or maybe have the character go on the quest to get the objects. Like, let's see where the gauntlets come from. Let's see where the rope comes from. Like,
let's see the Greek gods make this stuff for them because that's what it's supposed to be. That'd be fun. Speaking of Greek gods, Percy Jackson finished its first season. I
loved it.
I actually loved it.
Is it worth watching?
It's very much worth watching. I saw the movies. I thought the movies were okay, but then when I saw what they changed to make the movies, I went online and read like synopsises of the books because it makes more sense to me for me to read a 20-page synopsis than a 100-page book.
Sure.
But so I read like the Cliff Notes version of it, and I was like, wow, this book is way better than this movie. And then they made a second movie, which was even weirder than the first one, and it wasn't as good. Apparently, the show is a lot more accurate to the books, and you can kind of tell, and it's a lot of fun. It's worth watching, and they got a second season, so that's gonna be fun. But I think that if they do it right, the DC universe can be very fantastic. And with speaking of House of the Dragon, one thing that we were doing interviews during, they cast Supergirl from the House of the Dragon actress.
The young girl?
Yes.
I had no idea she was fabulous.
Mike, you follow me on social media.
I haven't gone on the gram in a long time. It's got to be
so bad at all of this stuff.
I'm not good at it.
Millie Alcock, who played the young queen, is officially Supergirl.
Hot dog. She's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah. And ironically, which is always really funny because like the DC hate is real out there, right? I mean, the DC hate is always real, but people started attacking the posts about her casting because they were like, didn't we just get Supergirl? She was so great. I'm like, if you guys all loved that movie, why didn't you show up for it?
Yeah, that's like, not. Yeah, you did.
Stop attacking the new casting because you loved the old casting after the casting failed. Like, people hated on Ben Affleck playing Batman until Ben announced he was quitting, and then he became the most loved Batman of all time.
Yeah, but that's only one way because people hated him as Daredevil, and I still hate him as Daredevil.
Have you watched the director's cut? Because
you say this to me every fucking time. Yes, I've seen the director's cut.
To me. Watch the goddamn movie, Michael.
A better cut. I get it. But it's not like it doesn't redeem
it is
him.
enough to change your mind on the movie.
No.
Yes,
Charlie Cox is my Daredevil. Charlie Cox is my Daredevil.
Shut your mouth. Watch that movie once, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, it was way better. Okay.
Is there anything else we needed to touch on? Are these all the controversies
There's a lot of
happening?
stuff to talk about, but you got me mad because I like the Daredevil director's cut, and he made me upset.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Deadpool and Wolverine is the official name of the next movie.
Let's go.
Some art came out. He looks amazing. I am just really excited about that movie across the board because I love the idea that this movie picks up after the end of Deadpool 2, where he's got Cable's time traveling device and he fucks up time enough to bring all of his friends back to life, and the TVA shows up at his door saying, "Stop fucking with time." That sounds like a great start of a movie.
Where do you think they plug him into? Because he's not going to go to like the main MCU, but he's going to be in the umbrella. Oh, you think he pops up at Paul Rudd's house?
Yeah, that's the idea. Is that the plan was that after the TVA and the whole adventure thing happens, Deadpool and Wolverine join MCU proper in time for the Secret Wars.
Is Secret Wars based on Secret Invasion? Are we going to get Tiny Arm Buff Lady? Is she going to be part of that team too, or is she the bad guy? Okay.
Yeah. They're basically calling the Multiversal Wars Secret Wars. Okay. And that's what they're doing.
Okay. That's fine. That's not Secret Wars, and that's fine. It'll be its own thing. I'm very excited for this movie. I was very excited for the X-Men cartoon, and now I'm not excited for that. So I don't know if I want to know more.
Deadpool. Okay. There's a set video that is just amazing that I think people are like, oh, it's not a spoiler because it's already all over the internet. When Hugh Jackman's Wolverine stops trying to kill Deadpool and they start working together, there's a set video of Ryan Reynolds jumping on his back, screaming, "Give me a piggyback ride," and Wolverine is trying to stab him off of him. I'm already in love with this dynamic. Like, give me this movie right into my fucking veins. I want it.
Yeah, but as much as I love it. All sounds great. But they're not going to give Ryan Reynolds another movie, and he's just going to be another set piece in a team. He'll be funny and great and all that stuff, but he's not going to have the same control that he's had. Also,
he's done though.
These set leaks only happen on Marvel movies because his first two Deadpool movies, nothing came out. They all felt like surprises when I saw them.
I'm sorry, I'm reading some of the comments.
I had to cough. That's why I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but so I don't know. I mean, it's such a weird thing that yes, they're giving him his movie. They're keeping it under the 20th century banner so they can allow it to be rated R. But Ryan Reynolds is also like 50 now, and he's going to be done.
He owns a soccer team. I've been watching that show. I've been watching.
That's a great show, and they keep losing money on it, but they're still committed to it. And I'm really excited that they're. I'm really excited that Rob McElroy was able to convince him to do this because it's crazy. It's so good.
It makes me think he'll do another Deadpool though because he needs that money.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's probably going to get paid out the butt for like his cameos in the future Marvel movies, or if he's smart, he just brokers the same Robert Downey Jr. deal. Like, give me 10% of the box office take, and I'll be whatever you want.
I think that's maybe the path because he'll be a big part of any movie he's in, but you can't base a team off Deadpool. I mean, there are teams around Deadpool, but like not really. He's a supporting person.
He's the character that steals the show. And if they're going to keep Deadpool in that PG-13 realm that they're going to do with the future movies, like I said with the last time we talked about this, give him the little censor clicker and allow him to break the fourth wall and censor himself.
For sure.
Make it hilarious for everybody without breaking your MPAA rules.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, super fun. But lastly, we are now approaching the mark that we are getting toward.
You can't cross the streams, Taylor. We got to get there.
We are crossing the streams. Here we go. So earlier today, Patrick Harpin and Yuki Demers, two of the creatives behind Across the Spider-Verse, publicly went to social media to basically say, by the way, guess what, internet? We were told this is not going to happen, but now it kind of might happen. But we're going to show you anyways to get the internet on our side.
Shut the fuck up.
They dropped 3 pieces of concept art. And mind you, this became my background for my computer. Not this one, but the next one I'm about to show you.
Taylor, it would
look
so
Look
good.
at that. Look at that.
He's fighting ink.
And it looks so perfect. And like, this is just concept art that the team behind us across the Spider-Verse put together. And they're like, by the way, you know what we did with the hip-hop Spider-Man stuff at Sony? Imagine a dark, heavy metal Batman story with that same fluidity of animation. And it's just going to be gothic and dark and neon and colorful. And it's going to be exactly what you want.
It would be.
Ironically, so they put this out there, right? They put it out there. And in the caption, oh my God, did they take the caption down? Oh, they took it down.
What did it
say? The caption down. Oh
did you have a screenshot of it? What did it say?
I copied some of it, so the internet will never forget, but some of it's out there. The quote that I copied was, let me just scroll back to my copy of it. Before we pitched, they warned us there was absolutely no way we could do a Beyond movie, but they loved our enthusiasm. We pitched the outline for an entire film, and what started as a never turned into a maybe.
Wow!
And they took that off of the internet. They took that pitch out. They took that announcement part of this. There's no doubt in my mind that when the internet lost its collective mind over these 3 images, that it got on their radar, and they're like, take that out.
Taylor, they're just doing what the other shows didn't. He's fighting his villain.
Yeah,
he's just fighting his villain, and that's like one villain. That's the opening fight scene. That's not even the whole movie.
No, I talked about this to you when we were younger, and I always said that the best way you could do a Batman Beyond project is set it up as a trilogy. First act, first movie, you introduce the origin of Batman Beyond, and then you have Ink, right? You do Ink or a couple other random throwaway villains, Ink and maybe Screech. Or the
sound one, the one
you
with
do those 2 things, and then you kind of set up for the bigger story with Powers being the final villain for part 3. The second one, you continue to tell that story with the Mr. Freeze stuff and a few of the other characters that help tell the story of Powers now dealing with the fact that he's a monster and he's trying to use this technology to either fix himself or just solidify that he's a villain. Third one, Powers is now full on Blight. He's fighting Batman. Batman gets his vengeance with the death of Blight. You do that 3-arc story, you can make a killer trilogy out of that.
You kill Bruce in the third one, or at the end of the number 2. Batman.
No, so what you do is in the third one, you incorporate parts of the epilogue storyline with the Blight stuff, and you make Amanda Waller show up and make the revelation that Batman Beyond is actually the genetic child of Bruce Wayne, and change the entire dynamic halfway through the movie so that now he doesn't want to talk to him because he thinks you made me to be you. This is all set up by your masterful ass plan. And then at the end of it, not only does he defeat Blight and avenge his biological father, but then he repairs the damage that he had made with Bruce and now has another father that he is now protecting.
It just makes so much sense. You can do that whole world in animation and it doesn't break. There's never like, oh, that looks too CGE. And
just give me this right into my veins. Like, I have never wanted a movie, an animated project so bad until I saw these images today. And I'm like, God damn, these guys get it.
It's so good looking.
And it was just 3 images, and they probably have a ton of others that they were like, "We made a book for you."
There for sure. There's a book, Taylor, with the villains and all that stuff.
What is most interesting about this whole thing was that when they put their post out there with the caption, I'm going to find that caption because Google's going to have it. Batman Beyond.
Oh, I'm so excited! I never get breaking news.
Yeah, so the fact that they deleted the caption is just absolutely insane to me.
Who do they have to sell on this idea? Do they have to sell Warner Brothers or do they have to sell James Gunn?
Here is the initial caption because it was. Did they take it off of Twitter too? Is it still on Twitter? It's still on Twitter. It's still on Twitter. They left it there because you can't edit the tweets once you
It's called X, Taylor.
I don't care. It's Twitter to me. 5 months ago, Patrick Harpin and I walked into Warner Brothers and DC Studios and pitched a Batman animated feature. Before they pitched, they warned us there was absolutely no way we could make a Beyond movie, but they loved our enthusiasm. We pitched the outline, and what started as a never turned into a maybe. In the time since, we've been pitching our way up the company, hoping to get to James Gunn. But now here's a taste of what we've been cooking.
Haven't got to James Gunn yet.
Like and share what if you want to see a Batman Beyond animated feature in theaters from writer-director Patrick Harpin, production designer and producer Yunki Dimmers, and there's the 3 images. So they left it on Twitter. It's still on Twitter, but they deleted the caption off of all their other social media posts, which is likely to be because they got the attention they wanted because the internet lost its collective mind.
It's so much. It's that.
Just one more time. One more time.
I know that studio is coming off such a huge hit. You know, I'm sure Sony, I'm sure Sony got them for a steal because they really cut their teeth and showed what they can do. Now they've shown what they can do. It's going to be very expensive to make these movies.
Is it though? You know for a fact that if they say, yes, we'll make this movie and sorry, we can't pay you what you want, they'll be like, but we get to make it and it's ours. I could see these guys do exactly the Robert Downey Jr. deal and say, yes, we will make it for pennies on the dollar for an exchange for the box office. We will make this movie. The internet will love us for it. And you will get some amazing PR because DC hasn't had any good animated films in a long time. What was the last DC animated film that was in the box office? Why is Warner Brothers scared of DC animation?
I can't even. I'm trying to think about it.
The Super Dog movie, Crypto the Super Dog. And
okay, I was going to say Space Jam 2, but you're right, Crypto the Dog.
And Space Jam 2 was also a bomb. So I could see why, from a purely business sense, that the studio is like, we're probably not going to invest in animation right now because we have yet to see one be successful for us. Then they see this, and then they see the internet basically change its tune saying, F you, DC, I hate you, DC too. Shut up and take my money. I think they're like, should we?
All right. Well, fingers crossed. We'll keep our ears to the ground and let you know whatever we hear coming. Because, oh boy, I think it's, yeah. And I think with the backing of the internet, they could do it. And funny enough, I think that there's a lot of similarities between Batman Beyond and Miles Morales in terms of stories. It'll be different, but I think that they can do a lot with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a Batman Beyond pitch for a long time now, and one of the best Batman Beyond kind of incarnations that they had was the slight retconning of the character, where they made his mom Japanese and his dad white, so that you have that Asian look to Terry. Do it.
Yeah,
just shut up and do it. Like, there's no reason why they shouldn't at this point. But we are now over the 1 hour mark. Thank you all for joining us, everybody. And Michael, take us home.
ET phone home. Our home is patreon.com/theculturenerd. That's where you can sign up to keep the lights on, keep us making all this wonderful content. We have a wonderful list of wonderful patrons. Thank you so much, wonderful patrons. Our host has been Taylor Murphy. I'm your co-host, Michael Santel. Our logo is by Jose Navarro, and our intro is by Jay Stu and Taylor Murphy. If you have your phones out, please like, comment, subscribe. All of those things make our videos more easyable access for other channels to find. And give a picture of that so you can give us a follow. And we'll see you all on the internet.
Did you say easyable?
Easy? Did I? I mean, I'm rapping. I'm delirious.
You're just making words up. I just
make up. I live in a Batman Beyond universe. I make up my own language.
Yeah, we just got it.
Oh, that guitar song. They could just use that soundtrack too.
Just do it. Just keep the same soundtrack. Add a little dubstep to it. Just go nuts with it.
Oh, can't wait for dubstep Batman. All right, everyone. We'll see all you kids and cats next time.